African music is exploding onto the world stage. Never before have African artists been as in demand as they are now. Afrobeats is making its influence felt across the globe as the continent's musicians start reaching a new international audience. So why is this happening now? Here's what some African musicians think.
Africa has always been next. It's just always been it's always been about time, and I think the time really has come for most Africans to realize that the gift is here. We don't need to go outside to look for validation when we can do it here.
There's so much more to our music here, and there's so much happening, and a lot of people are taking interest in what we are doing, what we have been doing. So I think it's just our time.
So is it just our time? Words of optimism and hope there about the potential of African musicians. But here's one voice, one big voice, urging caution.
What I see, my biggest fear is that in the next 10 years, because the scramble for African music is turning to the scramble for the land in Africa. I see the same thing happening. And people are signing deals that they barely understand and collecting advances that are selling their souls.
Hello, I'm Christy Mundo. Welcome to DW News Africa. Shuffle through your music playlist these days, and you might find a whole lot more music from African artists than you would have a decade ago, for example. It is because Africa has burst onto the global music scene in the last few years. You can see it in the number of artists from the continent who have been signed by big labels in the US and in the presence of some of those labels back in the motherland. It's actually really big, but don't take my word for it. The renowned music industry magazine Billboard said in February that Africa is the new frontier for the music industry and a potential hotbed for future mega stars on the world stage. Today, we'll be talking about this moment for African music, the opportunities and challenges it presents. Our first report focuses on one of the biggest talents on the continent right now, Burna Boy. His international success is proof that very soon the next global pop star could come out of Africa.
He's arguably Africa's most prominent artist, and now Burna Boy has crossed over into the big leagues. Under a bed of Afrobeat, dancehall and R&B tunes, his messaging is broad and includes addressing social and political concerns. This rich blend has won him fans not just at home in Nigeria, but now around the world. Multiple awards and a Grammy nomination have followed. One of the people behind Burna Boy's success has been his manager, who also happens to be his mother and a key influence on his values, as made clear when she accepted a BET award on his behalf last year.
The message from Burna, I believe, would be that every black person should please remember that you were Africans before you became anything else. Thank you.
Burna Boy has appeared on America's top nightly TV shows, sold out arenas around the world, and worked with some of the biggest names in music. Yet he's keen to remind his audiences of where he's coming from. His last album was titled African Giant. Burna is indeed towering above many others in a creative and competitive music scene. His fifth studio album is nearing completion. Another chance for triumph.
As you heard there, Burna Boy is managed by his mother, Bose Ogulu, who also goes by the name of Mama Burna. Speaking to us from Lagos, she told me how she sees the future of African music and the potential pitfalls for new stars. I began by asking what it meant to her that her son is now one of the most recognized artists in the world.
As a manager, it's fulfilling and just makes you feel like you've done good work. Been surrounded by a really solid team and, you know, we have the best product to sell. He's one of the most talented artists I've seen in my life. So having him to work with as a product is a blessing. And we all feel very fulfilled and proud about him personally, about what we are doing with him, about what we're doing for the continent, and just about how we've managed to represent ourselves.
I've read a little bit about you, and you've got a very fascinating life. You know, you had your own career that you've talked about having to sacrifice for the sake of your children. You're now, you know, running your son's career essentially. But I do want to talk about your working relationship, right? Because in 2014, I think it was, when Burna terminated your relationship, essentially fired you as his manager. One thing he did say was that he was happy to have his mother and best friend back, right? Business aside. I wondered if you've now found the formula of managing this relationship professionally.
I believe we both found the formula. I think it was important that happened, because if he didn't fire me, he wouldn't have had the time to go without me being a part of his career. Even though, I mean, I confess, I didn't let go completely. I still took care of his endorsements and a few things like that. But yes, I think we both found the formula. He's grown older, so there's maturity. He's gone around the block, so he's seen, you know, and circled back. He has a saying that when everything else fails, you go back home, and you retrace your steps. And right. You know, I've also grown, and I've realized that, you know, there need to be boundaries and respect, and, you know, where the mother-child relationship stops and where the business relationship starts. And, you know, we respect what we do for each other and respect each other's, you know, space. It's not perfect yet. I'm guessing it can never be, but we're good.
Right.
And I don't think either of us wants to change it anytime soon.
Bose, one of the most incredible moments that I think have happened at any awards show is you getting up on the BET stage and accepting the BET award on his behalf, on Burna Boy's behalf, in 2019. And then you went on to tell the audience that, you know, he said, I want all black people to know. You said you'd believe Burna would want people to know that every black person was an African before they became anything else. And we're now listening to Burna's music, which some people have described as African sort of activism. And I wonder, was that a deliberate thing? Or is this a space that you found yourselves in? And how much is the politics and the political message important to you guys?
Right, okay. So I was born into a Pan-Africanist family. I could tell you about apartheid when I was 5 years old. So that's my life. That's what it's been. That's the only way I know. And you raise your kids with what you know, with the values that have worked for you. So, you know, Burna and every one of them has that. I have worked around Africa in my career as a translator and interpreter. So I know, I speak literally, I don't know how many African languages, and 4 or 5 international languages. So I've been, you know, so I'm in touch with the people, I'm in touch with the land. That's who I am. That's who Burna was raised to be. So that's who he is. So, you know, if something is your truth, even if you wake up from sleep, you will say it.
Back to the music now, right? We're talking about a time where there is all this fuss about music from the continent, right? It's partly why Burna is the big star he is today. People want to hear that sound. But as you guys go increasingly global, is there the chance that you're going to have to at some point make some compromises, some creative compromises to try and fit in to sort of the mainstream industry, so to say?
Burna just makes music. It doesn't work from answer to question. That doesn't work for him. He goes into the studio, he listens to a beat, it inspires him. And if you look at his catalog, he's done features with American artists where you don't even know where he comes from, because he's responding to the music that's in front of him. He's done features with, South African artists, East African artists, where if you didn't know he was, his origins, you won't know where he's from. So we don't really have that kind of problem with this artist because he has a range, and because his management understands him and has a vision. We've always looked at a situation where his music is accepted on his own terms. I mean, as a manager, I can't say, after it's been done, if you have 10 songs, I can't say, okay, this will work better in this environment, that will work better. But before he's done the songs, for us to say, listen, you need to do a song for this person, for this market, and it has to sound such and such, it's going to just come out all wrong because it's art.
Right.
It's art. It has to be art. So that's been our focus. And then, you asked about African music and where it is. We've gone on and formed Spaceship Collectives, which is a label. It has a label, a record arm, and a publishing arm, which for us, which I founded, but is driven by Burna. And, again, I have a beautiful team. But the idea for me behind it is that Africans should own their catalogs. Because what I see, my biggest fear is that in the next 10 years, because the scramble for African music is turning to the scramble for the land in Africa. I see the same thing happening. And people are signing deals that they barely understand and collecting advances that are selling their souls. So we want to push that at least let an African be the one to buy your catalog. Then it's easier for you to buy it back. Then you don't have this problem of them telling us what to sing and how we should sound in the next 5-10 years, which is bound to happen if the people who own your catalog and own your career don't understand what you're about.
Bose Ogulu there. Another challenge facing musicians in Africa, as elsewhere in the world, is the coronavirus crisis. We asked artists in South Africa, Nigeria and Kenya how the pandemic had changed their professional lives. It seems for some it is creating real hardship.
It has affected us greatly. First of all, income was the biggest thing that has the COVID has affected. And another thing would be all the plans that have been made in terms of festivals that were scheduled, and all the performances that were scheduled, tours, interviews, they had to be cancelled due to the COVID. So it had a bad impact on the music and artists in general in South Africa.
It hasn't really made work easy. Like, a lot of people can come to my studio. There are lots and lots of restrictions on how many people comes.
This pandemic has really affected us as musicians and really everyone else, being on lockdown, no access to events, no possibilities of brand placements. Most brands are holding back on marketing, so even just getting a brand deal right now has been tricky. It's just been tough.
But despite such setbacks, some artists are finding ways to keep their fans happy. We caught up with Ugandan singer Spice Diana to find out how she is managing to perform and connect with her audience despite the COVID crisis.
In this live TV show, Ugandan pop star Spice Diana performs for fans across the country. She misses the big stage, but she remains happy that she can at least keep the fans virtually entertained.
It feels so good because I know every fan of Spice Diana has been watching me perform, because I know they miss me on stage. So with such a show, it actually keeps them, connected to Spice Diana. It makes them feel like we're actually together, or it's maybe a live show somewhere.
And that is true of her fan Eve Nambuya. She enjoys the show and loves to dance along from her home in Kampala.
I just love everything about the dance party. It makes me crazy, it makes me go wild. And when Spice came, oh, it was also another massive show. I just enjoyed. I can dance, then sometimes I pause, I watch.
When she's not on TV, Spice Diana is mostly busy updating the social media. She says that the lockdown has got her more active on the internet to keep her following engaged.
I think things are going to be more digital now because, you know, the pandemic has really helped us see the value of social media, the value of, you know, maybe the likes and the following, because now, like I've told you, some companies have reached out to me because of my following.
Despite that, Diana says that her income has sharply dropped during the pandemic, just like for most artists. Online platforms like YouTube bring in some income, but she says that does not match ticket sales for live audiences, especially in her country where fans rarely buy records. But when cameras roll, that does not seem to stop Spice Diana from giving her best. And the fans know all that too well. It is time to dance.
I'd so love to go to a Spice Diana concert. So she's a real example of how some artists are getting around the COVID curveball. But going back to the idea that this is the moment for the continent's music, I spoke to Sipho Dlamini, who is a senior executive at Universal Music Africa. I began by asking him why that moment is now.
I think it's just a matter of work, hard work that's been put in by many artists, producers, and talent across the continent. And it's beginning to move into spaces that it didn't move before. I think the digital space and the growth of streaming platforms and the fact that they've also invested in their presence in Africa is helping to carry this music and these stories farther abroad.
Yeah, and abroad, right, is the place where there seems to be this big appetite for sound from the continent. And what would you attribute that to?
I think African rhythms have always been exciting, and historically, I think they've been borrowed in bits and pieces and have influenced music that has come out of the rest of the world. Now people are more curious and are more passionate about hearing it from its source, hearing it the way that it's created in its fullness from artists from Africa. It's just a beautiful time. It's a beautiful sound. And again, I think the digital disruption has enabled it to travel a lot further than it could during the days of physical CDs.
Let's talk about doing business and making money in Africa. What challenges do you face? I mean, this market presents its own unique can I call them characteristics, right? You talked about streaming and these various distribution platforms. You have a lot of challenges there because data, for example, is expensive. Just talk to us about doing business and making money in Africa.
It is very complicated. I mean, it's 54 countries, so it's not like it's one country that has different regions. So, being able to move money and make payments into different countries is a challenge. Being able to use or provide music at the same level of quality in each market is complicated. An example is Spotify only exists in one country, in South Africa. Apple Music, until a few months back, was only available in 16 countries. We're excited and happy that they've expanded, I think it's into 33 countries. But just those basic things have made it hard for every market or for every country to have the same access to music at the same ease of access. And you mentioned data cost, which is a huge burden and a barrier to people using streaming. So much so, I think South Africa is in the top 10 most expensive countries for data in the world.
And I just want to take you back to something you said in the beginning, right? You talked about, the original sound, that people have worked hard to get African music to where it is today, being recognized on the international stage. One of the biggest things that can happen to an artist is winning a Grammy, Sipho. And I wondered, when are we going to get to a place where African artists are nominated for Grammy categories that are not Best International Act?
Yes. Look, touch wood, maybe it's going to be 2021. We've had a number of strong releases, and we hope that, you know, with the Grammys being the biggest and probably the most important annual music industry awards event, that some of our artists will start getting the recognition in that space. But you're absolutely right. There is great music that is coming out of Africa. You have artists like Tiwa Savage out of Nigeria doing great music all the time. You have Nasty C out of South Africa. You have Sauti Sol out of Kenya. So the talent is there, the music quality is there, the songwriting is there, the music videos are amazing. Hopefully, it'll be very soon that we get to see them nominated and possibly win.
So, what do you think? Which African musicians do you reckon are the ones to watch? Write in the comments section or get in touch with me directly. My Twitter handle is @Mundwa7. I look forward to hearing from you. Today, we'll leave you with some more great sounds from Africa. Bye-bye.
Tonight is your night, baby. Celebrating you, my lady. Senorita, take it slow, telling me, baby. Make we don't send nobody. Girl, listen to me when I say, baby, tonight, Omalecha make you jikere.
I'll go later. Memories not the richest thirst. Just no concession for our connection, boy. See, I'm my elected, and this life here is in session. See, I need you for your direction. Cause there's love in the air, and I'm in love with the night. So take me into the sky.
You came all this way, made no stops, with no breaks, yeah. Made your sacrifice, with no cross in your face, yeah. Got love when you call, and we talk like it's basic. Patient, take no L's with me, we just got major keys. So what's the deal? You ain't gotta cop no feels.
I no go vex, as guy man they walk, you see guy man must flex. Make sure say I dey mind my business, because crazy people everywhere, I no like stress. Nowadays I go they put me first, I go they do my best, I go they leave the rest, I go they keep it fresh, I go they wear like best, I go they do my mega shuffle, they avoid the rest. Yeah.